Okay, great. We are live. All right. Hello, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kirsten. I am an ecologist and a SciCommer collaborating with Untamed Science to bring you super interesting topics in biology and ecology. So today, this video is a little bit of an extension from my other video with Nicholas McCarney on fishing impacts on non-target wildlife and mitigating this problem. If you haven't seen it, you can go check it out, but it's not super necessary for this video, so don't worry about it. The main idea that we took from that is sometimes when people are fishing, they accidentally catch and injure wildlife, particularly turtles has kind of been our focus, but there's other animals involved, of course. But we talked a little bit about ways to mitigate that issue and how you can help. And then today, what I wanted to focus on was talking about what you can do if you encounter injured wildlife, or if you're a fisherman and you actually catch, say, a turtle, and how you can go about that. So with me today here, I have Kim Titterngton, the founder and director of Swamp Girl Adventures. So she's here to talk to us a little bit about the rehabilitation process and what you do if you encounter wildlife in trouble. And we're going to focus mostly, again, on turtles and fish hooks. So Kim, do you think you could just take a second to introduce us a little bit, yourself a little bit, tell us what you do at Swamp Girl Adventures, where you guys are located, a little bit of a background.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Kim Titterngton, and I am the founder and director of Swamp Girl Adventures, which is also now Swamp Girl Adventures Reptile Rehabilitation. And so as the name suggests, we do specialize in reptile rehab. So that's the majority, about 98% of what we see is reptile related, from turtles, tortoises, to snakes and lizards, and even frogs. So we get some amphibians in there. So that's kind of our primary focus. And we started back in 2009 as a nonprofit organization, and we've been going ever since, just trying to educate the public and help out the wildlife.
That's excellent. That's exciting. And sorry, where exactly are you guys located, just for us that aren't aware of that?
We are in Osceola County, Florida.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that's why it's so nice and green there still. Beautiful. That's awesome. All right, thank you for that introduction. So today we're going to narrow in a little bit. Obviously, reptiles, amphibians, all the things you guys work with encounter a whole different range of problems in their environment. But I want us to focus a little bit on fishing related injuries. So how often do you encounter animals with fishing related injuries, and is there anything other than turtles that you also find, or what's the majority of your cases?
Actually, the fish hooks in a turtle's mouth or swallowed hooks in turtles, and is pretty common. I mean, I wouldn't say it makes up a large amount of our cases, because it really depends on who finds them. A lot of times people will see them with the hook in their mouth, but they're obviously functioning and not swimming around the lake. And by the time we show up, the animal is gone. So we get a lot of reports, but we can't always capture them, because once the line is cut, now that animal is out swimming around. So unless they're being either trapped or they're so in such bad condition that we can actually get them or hung up on something, those are the ones we end up dealing with. So that's kind of what we see on that end. When it comes to other animals, although we don't particularly deal with birds specifically, we do go out on calls, and we see a lot of entanglements with birds as well. And we've even had, gopher tortoises live on land, but we've had turtles and tortoises that have also been caught in nets. So sometimes it's not just fish hooks or fishing line, but also entanglements and netting that's been, discarded either on land or in water. So we do see a lot of, different areas with that, with different animals, including small mammals that might get entangled on land, like raccoons.
Right. Okay. So it's a wide variety of issues that we have here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a couple images that you've shared with me with some fish, with some turtles with fish hooks. I do want to just give a little warning to people. It might be like slightly sensitive content, because these are injured animals. So just before we go ahead and share these pictures, just that you guys are aware. So we have a couple different ones here. I can start maybe with this image. What are we looking at here? Can you tell us a little bit about this photo?
Yeah, this is a male peninsula cooter. The line was actually tangled around some bushes, and someone who went down with their child to kind of go look at the lake, seen an animal thrashing around, and then they realized that not only was the fishing line hung up, but the turtle also was hung up in multiple ways. This is, I'm not a fisherman, so I don't know exactly what kind of lure or hook set this is, but it is the one with the 3 different prongs, so top and bottom. So the foot is stuck in the bottom hooks down there, and then in the top there's 3 prongs stuck within the mouth, with one of them coming through the eye socket of the turtle. This was something that was not entirely recent. This poor animal was probably like this for, I would guess, about a week by looking at the injuries, and was getting pretty tired. So this one was in some pretty rough shape. That's kind of what we're seeing in this image here.
Right. So very, very entangled, and thankfully somebody came across it. Did you guys end up having a successful rehabilitation with this guy, or?
Yes, and I think I may have sent you a photo where it shows all the different pieces that we removed. It was a very delicate situation. We basically, at first we went for the foot area to detangle, and unhook the foot. Yeah, and that's another one there. That was kind of like when it first happened. But so we got the hook out of the foot so that we can then trim back the rest of it that was near the mouth. The mouth was lodged open, and he couldn't close.
This is the correct photo? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that one's good too. I wasn't sure if I sent one that had all the different pieces laid out, but but yeah, so the hook that was at the roof of the mouth, it was down at the bottom jaw, and then through the eye, because it went in 3 different directions. So we basically had to, you can see that the little clips there, we're holding onto it so nothing slips back, because you don't want any pieces to, of course, go down the throat as you're trimming it back. But we had to basically trim the barb off near the eye, so that we could bring it back. So we had to push it through a little more there. And it was just so complicated, because every time you moved one at the top or at the bottom, the other hooks are moving as well. And you're trying to pick which one do you move first so that you're not making it worse.
Of course,
so this was probably one of the most complex situations that we dealt with multiple hooks like that. It was
okay. And so most of the time it's a little bit more common, if I'm not wrong, where we just have the turtles that are getting the hooks in their mouth or throat. This is a soft shell. What kind of species?
This is a Florida soft shell turtle. One of our native ones here.
So this is actually the post that made us connect, because I was starting to look into this issue, and on your Instagram that you had shared this little guy here. So someone found this turtle and brought it into you guys?
Yeah, just by chance, it was walking across her driveway going from one pond to another. So it was just happened to be going by when she was taking her daughter to school, and she stopped and she seen it, and she's like, when it wasn't hit by a car, but she did see that it had some extra accessories there that were not normal. So she did the right thing, and she contacted us, a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, to get help and assistance for the turtle. In this case, the fact that it had happened recently, she got it to us right away. This one was within about 2 minutes, we had the hook out of the mouth, and the turtle was very happy. It wasn't lodged all the way through the eye. It hadn't been there long enough to work its way or do damage. So this was one of those best case scenarios. And he was like this big. I mean, he's like the smallest fish hook patient we've had.
Oh, that's so adorable. So I guess here, this can kind of show us that like early intervention is such a big thing, right? So if you see something like this, or if you're a fisherman, that if you can get to it soon, then it's pretty simple. In theory, it's a fairly simple process.
Yeah, and one this size would be pretty easy, that if you hooked them, honestly, whoever hooked this animal did cut the line. If they would have brought them up and just contained them, and then, contacted a local rehabber, it probably could have been taken care of right then and there, instead of, but luckily she did see it and stopped and was able to intervene.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about too, what you should do as a fisherman towards the end here, but so those are just some of the cases, some of the turtles that we have. So for these turtles that you get, what does the process usually look like for them? Like, obviously we kind of have a best and a worst case scenario, but in the really rough cases, such as the one with the 3-pronged hooks, what kind of process do they have to go through? What resources do you guys need to be able to take care of that?
It does. It kind of depends case by case. We try to avoid any kind of anesthesia with reptiles if we can. They're very sensitive to it and sometimes can do more harm than good. So usually if it's something more superficial, or say, I think there's a couple other pictures where there's one that kind of comes up through the head, or maybe it is lodged, but it's something that we can use a topical numbing agent and a general pain reliever, and we can use that and then remove it. That's the best thing we can do. If there's infection, then we will hold them and, you know, obviously give them a whole, you know, run of antibiotics so that we can ensure that, you know, infection doesn't set in and then they die later after releasing them.
Right. Okay. So case to case, sometimes you have to keep them. Do you guys have a fairly large facility that houses a lot of turtle or reptiles that are in recovery?
We are actually looking to upgrade because the need for reptile rehabilitation, especially in Florida, I mean, year round, we have situations because it stays fairly warm. So we are actually trying to upgrade. But what we have is quite a few different, like 300-gallon holding, you know, ponds. We have different pens that are for situations where they need to have a little more time or healing.
Right. Okay. I do actually have the photo. I did just find it of the hook coming up through the head. Now, again, if you're sensitive to content, maybe just don't look for a moment. But yeah, so here we have, can you tell me what kind of turtle this is?
This is another Florida softshell turtle. It's
Okay.
actually probably one of the most common ones we see with fish hooks. It's those and red ear sliders, although red ear sliders are not native to Florida, but they are one of those turtles that become very social around fishing areas, just like softshell turtles. They get to know people for food. And at that point, they're like, you know, hey, you know, every time these fishermen come on over, I get something. And they learn that pattern. And then they're the ones more susceptible to it because they're not as shy. They'll approach at once they learn. So we do see a lot of soft shell turtles with fish hooks.
Right, right. Okay, awesome. So I think that's a good point for us to lead into, starting with fishermen in particular, and then we'll move to kind of the general community. What can fishermen do? First, just briefly, what they can do to mitigate, and then what they can do if they do catch a turtle or feel like that their line is snagged. Just kind of those 2 points.
Yeah, definitely. Basically, you know, always, you know, just being considerate of the environment as well as other people, you know, by not leaving your fish hooks around or fishing line. Just at the beach the other day, walking around barefoot, there's a hook like this big with some line on it. I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't step on that. So, you know, even just for humans and people, you know, just that courtesy is always nice. But you know, just, you know, watching out for that. And if you do see or you end up with an animal that's been entangled, I mean, accidents happen. You know, it's, if you can seek help for that animal, that's definitely recommended. One of the things that we find is very helpful is if you did entangle or you did hook a turtle, and especially if they've swallowed it, if there's some fishing line left, you know, try not to just cut it and let them go, but you know, leave a little so that we can kind of follow it down to where it goes. That helps us to make sure it doesn't continue down and go further, because the further it goes, the more likely it's going to be a euthanasia case or require surgery. So that's why we want to try to get things as fast as possible. But just putting them in a bucket, a container, a box, you know, we're not always, if you're able to get it, if it's something superficial and you feel brave enough, that's fine. But one other case we did have is someone had caught a Florida softshell turtle, and they yanked it so hard that they actually twisted the neck, and we ended up with a broken neck on that turtle, and it had to be euthanized. So sometimes I know, you know, they could be nippy and they're upset and they're being defensive. So if you don't feel comfortable doing it, then just contain them and then let someone who is do it. So that would be my best advice, is you don't have to be the one to do it, you can bring them somewhere else.
Right, for sure. And just putting them in any kind of container, you don't have to worry too much about getting them there. Just get them there as quickly as you can, kind of thing, I guess, right?
Yeah. And I mean, even if you continue fishing and you've got them set off to the side and you're making those phone calls or looking up, for the local wildlife, here in Florida, we have a listing on our FWC website that has wildlife rehabilitators, and not every single one is versed in reptiles. So it may be one of those change of hands, but seeking help or advice at least is really important.
Right, excellent. So just taking the time to call, putting the animal to the side, not just cutting your line. And the big one is not leaving your hooks and your stuff entangled, just taking that extra time to respect the environment and clean up after yourselves, essentially, is the big one.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think I even included a picture of one of the turtle's faces as it looks kind of mutilated, and it was actually because a hook was in its mouth for a very long period. So that's something else that we see if they are cut loose and they even manage to continue eating. It does end up causing deformations of the face and beak.
Right. And yeah, anybody who's watching, we are sharing in the description the Instagram, the Facebook, and the website for Swamp Girl. So you guys can head over there and you guys can check out more of these photos as well and look into more what they're doing. There's a specific link as well to donate. So anybody who's able to go ahead and donate, because as we've been hearing, it's a nonprofit organization. So this is another thing that's really important to understand, because I've seen before people hesitant. A fisherman, I saw a comment once where he said, I don't want to pay for this. But you don't have to pay for it. It's a nonprofit organization. You just have to make the call, right? But we do need people that are able to try to help it donate and help out. So if you guys are watching this and are able to give a little bit of something, there's down in the description there, the link for that. So
exactly.
Speaking of people and community, what can kind of the average person who's not fishing, who doesn't catch a turtle, what can they do if they find an animal? And then what else can we do to help mitigate the problem as kind of a third party?
So if you do come across an injured animal of any kind, whether it's a bird or, a mammal or even a reptile, same thing as with the fishermen, contacting or finding a local rehab center is good. I always suggest for the general public to always learn where your closest wildlife rehabilitator is. So if you've just moved somewhere, or if you've been in a town for a long time, always kind of have those numbers on hand. It's almost like a lot of people always know animal control and so animal services for the cats and dogs and domestics. It's having that number it's just as important having a local rehab center and connection. And having those connections are very helpful in an emergency, because you never know. With Florida itself, we're growing so fast. The amount of animals and human impact is very high. So everybody needs to have that information.
Right. So just save it in your cell phone, just like having your doctor in there or the animal control as well. And then it's just a quick click away, and then you don't have to worry about looking it up at that moment. Excellent.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great. And what else can we do, or what else are you guys as an organization doing to also kind of help some of these issues? I know I did have this photo that I would like to pull up here. If you can tell me a little bit about why you sent me this photo and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, one of the things that we like to do a couple times per year is we do something called a swamp and sweep. And it's just kind of our fun swamp girl twist on there. But basically we go to wetland or water, areas, parks, and we do cleanups. And one of the things that we clean up is fishing line, fishing hooks, or bobbers and lures, anything that's there, as well as invasive plants, and just cans, bottles, whatever is there. And these are things that anybody or any organization or local community can go do. You can take just a couple friends, or just take your family and say, we're going to go clean up the lakefront today, and you just go with little tongs in the bag, and it's anything like that. Anytime you see it, pick it up. Don't walk past it and say, oh, that's someone else's job, because pretty soon that ends up in our waterways. And fish hooks and fishing line is just one of the causes that we see when it comes to impacting wildlife. So these are great ways to get with your community or just as a family and do something important.
Right, that's awesome. Thanks so much for that. And I also have this little photo that you sent me of this little apparatus
Yeah,
here.
so this is where we actually built these, and we worked with FWC as well as Home Depot. They donated all the supplies, and we put the manpower of putting them together, the monofilament canisters. So basically, anywhere where there might be fishing, we noticed that there's no way to dispose of it. Some places didn't even have basic trash cans because where everyone fishes isn't always a big park or large area. So by installing these and giving fishermen an option to put something there safely is something that I think is very important, and we need to have a lot more of these. And it also educates the general public on what they're for, and maybe people who are new to the fishing, how to use them and to protect the environment and the wildlife.
Right, for sure. It's all about awareness here at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I also had one more image you sent here to me that we can take a look at, and then I think we can wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah, I know this is not related to fishing line. This can be a whole nother subject in itself, but
Right.
balloons. Balloons are dangerous to wildlife. This actually came out of the stomach of a softshell turtle that was struck by a car. So it didn't come to us because it was ill. It actually came to us for an injury. And while in rehab, passed balloon parts. So that's something that, you know, as just with general cleanups, don't release balloons. So just one of those things that we just add to the mix of common issues with wildlife and garbage or pollution.
Right, exactly. So just think twice about what you're putting out in the environment and how you can help. Great, thank you so much. I feel like I came away with some good knowledge. Hopefully everybody watching this has learned a little bit of something, and just it's all about, at the end of the day, like, keeping conscious about our impact in the environment and just trying to do better. By no means, as well as I mentioned in my past video, if you guys saw it, I never want to say that fishing is bad and that recreational fishing shouldn't happen, but it's just about respecting our natural habitats that we are also doing that recreational fishing in. You know, if we don't have these nice natural habitats, there's not going to be fishing anyways as well. So, right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kim, so much for joining me today. And thank you to everybody who watched here. Again, one more time, down in the description, you can find the links to all of Swamp Girl's different sites. And also as well, you can find the links for my Instagram and for my page with Untamed Science. And if you haven't actually read the blog that is with this video, you can go ahead and check that out in the link as well. And thank you so much. And we will see you guys next time.